I recently did a live stream with my friend Aristotle where I guided him through Mario Party minigames while he was blindfolded. Okay, jump up to the right. No, jump left, jump left. No!
What was that? Go right, jump left, what?
This turned out to be a lot harder than you'd think, but there was something that I noticed. For a few of the minigames, he didn't even really need my help. Just stay right there, don't do anything.
Don't do anything.
That actually worked, you're still alive.
I feel like I didn't do anything.
Which got me thinking, with the right circumstances, how many minigames can you win by actually doing nothing at all? So I started at the top of the minigame list with Lumber Tumble. Now at first glance, you would think Lumber Tumble would be impossible to win by doing nothing, and you'd sort of be right. The good thing about this minigame is that the log doesn't knock you out, it just slowly pushes you along. So it could be possible for the CPUs to all fall before you get pushed off. But I did about 50 or more attempts and I never got anywhere near that lucky. The best I got was 3rd place. However, if you happen to have a guardian angel pushing you to safety, you can technically win that way. But that's not really in the nature of the challenge, so I'm going to say Lumber Tumble is impossible. Next up was Big Top Quiz, where you need to select the correct answer within 10 seconds, and the quicker you answer, the more points you get. I wanted to see if once the time limit was up, the game would automatically select an answer for you, but unfortunately this wasn't the case, so it is definitely impossible to win Big Top Quiz doing nothing. Camera Ready was the next minigame where you have to take a photo matching the one shown at the beginning. Even if you somehow got incredibly lucky with the photo placement, the game once again fails you once the time is up, meaning it's impossible to take a photo and impossible to win doing nothing. Scaricel is a survival minigame, but unlike Lumber Tumble, you have basically no chance of survival once the minigame starts. So unless everybody else loses in the first 4 seconds, which I don't think would ever happen, this minigame is also impossible. Snag the Flags also has no way of winning since you need to move in order to collect flags scattered around the map. You can get pushed by other players, but not quickly enough for it to have any impact. Sandwiched is a little more interesting, because it's another survival minigame, but you actually have a chance of surviving. At least for a little bit. Sandwiches randomly drop from the sky and squash you, but if you're lucky, you won't get squashed straight away. That being said, eventually you get to a point where you need to jump up to the next layer or you're basically guaranteed to get squashed. And this actually happens pretty early on. I tried for a long time just to see if there was any chance the CPUs all got squashed before this happened, but the best result I could get was 3rd. Even my guardian couldn't help me climb the sandwiches. I'm calling this one impossible. Time for everyone's favorite minigame, Hot Cross Blocks. You need to cross the lava by selecting the best option, but like Big Top Quiz, once 10 seconds is up, the game won't automatically make a selection for you. Meaning this is another impossible minigame. Light Wave Battle requires you to ground pound to attack opposing players with light waves. You can also dodge the waves by jumping. We can't do either of these things. Since we can't attack, I wondered if it was possible to get a tie for first if everyone got hit at the same time. And with the right setup, it is actually possible. However, the chances of this happening without a guardian angel seem incredibly low. Technically though, this one is plausible. Swamp the Difference is another selection minigame, and of course, like the other similar minigames, the game won't automatically select for you once the time runs out, making this minigame impossible. In Cold Front, you have to avoid getting blown off the ice by the Typhoos. At first glance, it seems almost impossible to survive. If either of these 2 Typhoo blow air, you get blown straight off, and obviously this one also blows you off. So odds of survival are already very low. Then, if one of the other 2 Typhoo happen to blow air, you still have to hope that the CPUs actually get blown off. I was doing constant attempts while taking notes and also trying to figure out a viable strategy with a Guardian Angel, and then this happened. Yoshi even somehow managed to bounce off Waluigi's head to secure the win. I honestly don't know how it happened, but I do know that Cold Front is somehow our first confirmed minigame. Hot Hot Hop is next, another survival minigame. This minigame wouldn't be too bad if it wasn't for the spinning fire bar. Since we can't avoid it, we can only survive for about 3 seconds. The odds of all 3 CPUs losing before then seems pretty much impossible. Although from my multiple attempts, I did notice one interesting thing. Every single round, Waluigi would run back and dive into the bar before it hit me. Me and Waluigi haven't always gotten along over the years, but his constant sacrifice was something I will always remember. Despite this, I'm marking Hot Hot Hop as impossible. Domination is a button mashing minigame, and it's pretty hard to button mash when you can't press any buttons. No way around this one, it's an impossible minigame. Free throw isn't much different, you need to throw the basketball in the hoops to score points, and since we can't throw the basketball, we can't score points, making this one impossible. And Granite Getaway is also pretty much the same. You need to run from the rolling boulder to stay alive. The game will auto run a little bit, but not much, and the boulder catches up to you pretty quick. Unless everyone turns around and runs straight for the boulder, this one is impossible. Tilt-A-Golf is a motion control minigame, which is pretty hard to do if you're doing nothing. But before you can even start playing, you need to press the A button. If it wasn't already impossible because of the motion controls, it's definitely impossible because of this. Night Lights is our next motion control minigame where we have to spin the Joy-Con to turn on the lights. There's no way around this one. Without moving the Joy-Con, it's impossible. Hammer at Home is unfortunately the same. You need to swing the Joy-Con to hit the nails, so this is another impossible motion control minigame. I thought Twist and Sort might be one of the few possible motion control minigames, but when the Joy-Con is on a flat surface, it actually lies on a slight angle, meaning the platforms are also on a slight angle, making the balls roll straight off the edge. Even if we rest the Joy-Con on an uneven surface to make it sit flat, the balls still roll off to the side, just slightly slower. So this one is impossible. Shuttle Scuttle is where our odds get a little bit better. You need to avoid the electricity and survive the longest, but there's two things that make this minigame possible. The first thing is that we have 2 lives, which always helps. The second thing is that we don't fail if we touch the bottom. The game just keeps pushing us up. Again, we move on a slight angle because of how the Joy-Con sits, but on our very first attempt we get second place. Then on the second attempt we get an insane run and win by about 1 frame, except I forgot to hit record. So we go again and actually easily win on the third attempt, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the 6th, 7th, and 8th. Yeah, this is definitely the easiest minigame to win so far. But then we have another motion control minigame that actually requires us to do something. In Tiny Triathlon, you need to shake the Joy-Con to move forward, which unfortunately makes this minigame impossible to win. The next minigame is almost exactly the same. In Pickaxe Dash, you have to swing the pickaxe by swinging the Joy-Con. I did have a thought during these motion control minigames that if you happen to put the Joy-Con down somewhere and then that somewhere happen to start shaking the Joy-Con, for example, I don't know, maybe inside a clothes dryer, you would technically be doing nothing, but the Joy-Con would be moving and you might be able to win that way. Obviously I didn't end up doing that because it sort of defeats the purpose of the challenge, but it was something I thought I would mention anyway. Regardless, Pickaxe Dash is another impossible minigame. Thankfully, that's the end of the motion control minigames for now, but Gatekeepers isn't much better. Another minigame that requires you to make a selection, and once again the game won't make a selection for you if the timer runs out, meaning Gatekeepers is impossible. Sled to the Edge is up next. In this minigame, you need to release your sled at the correct time to finish closest to the edge. But because you need to press A to release your sled, this is another impossible minigame. Rings to Riches is our first coin minigame. To win this minigame, you need to collect the most coins, which is pretty hard to do when you can't move. It is possible to get some coins by getting knocked around by opponents or snowballs, but nowhere near enough to win. I'm marking this one as impossible. Treetop Treasure is sort of similar, but in this minigame all the coins spawn above you, making not being able to jump a pretty big problem. There were some attempts where the opponents would knock me off and Lakitu would drop me onto some coins, but once again it was never enough to give me any chance of winning. Another impossible minigame. Treasure Divers was the worst of the coin minigames so far, since you need to dive down to pick up chests and bring them back up to the surface to get the coins. I thought maybe it would be possible for someone to drop their chest next to me so that I could lift it above the surface, but even with the help of a guardian angel I wasn't able to get a single coin in this minigame. In Platform Peril, you have to try and survive while also collecting coins along the way. This one was even worse than Treasure Divers because there was no way to even make it onto the first platform. I could get someone to push me, but without being able to jump, there was no hope of even getting a single coin. Another impossible minigame. Thankfully, now we're back to the normal minigames. In Stamp Out, you need to cover as much space as possible with your color, but to cover space, you need to move. So even though we get a bonus 1% just for existing, it wasn't enough to win us the minigame. Trample Line is the last free-for-all minigame, and I had a good feeling about this one. You have to avoid the spiky ants longer than your opponents, but the thing that made me think this minigame is possible was the fact that you bounce automatically on the regular ants. I noticed early on that my positioning was not good because I was on the far left and I would always hit the first pointy ant. I thought that if I was lucky, eventually I might bounce off another player over the first spiky ant. But then on about my 5th attempt, the ants switched direction and came from the other side. With this turn of events, 2 of the CPUs got eliminated before the spiky ant reached me, putting me in 2nd. After a few more attempts, I got another match where the ants started at the other end, but this time the stars aligned and I got the win. Now we start our 3 vs 1 minigames, meaning we have teammates to help us win, but I'll also be testing out if we can win as the solo player too. First up is Sunset Standoff. Me and Cooper get taken out pretty much instantly, but Luigi is an absolute beast and survives the next 4 rounds completely solo. Then I try as a solo player and I'm surprised at how well the CPUs do. I expected to get close to winning, but I couldn't even get one hit. After a few attempts, it looks like it's not going to happen. If you don't move, it seems like the CPUs will always dodge you. So you can win Sunset Standoff, but only if you're on the team of 3. Cookie Cutters is up next. This minigame is another minigame that requires a selection, except this time we have teammates. Unfortunately though, we're a bit of a burden because if we don't make a selection when it's our shape, then we hold up the entire team until the minigame ends. Being the solo player is obviously even worse since we can't even count on our teammates to score us a couple of bonus points. It's a double fail on this one. Unfriendly flying objects is better though. It's another minigame where you need to survive, and once again we have teammates to help us out. Although I actually almost managed to survive the whole minigame. Luckily, once again Luigi clutches out the last few seconds and we get the win. When it comes to being the solo player though, it's impossible to win since we can't drop any spikes. So that's a win, but only on the team of 3. So far we haven't been able to win as a solo player, but maybe that will change on the Lost and Found minigame. In this minigame we have to choose a hiding spot, but unlike every other minigame up to this point, the game will automatically make a selection for us when the timer runs out. The spot it chooses is always the bottom option. Then it just comes down to luck, and eventually we are able to get the win. On the team of 3, we need to choose where the opponent is hiding, and once again, the game will make a selection for us once the timer runs out. This time it selects the left hand spot for us, and again, with a bit of luck, we get the win. That means we have our first double win, making Lost and Found the best 3 vs 1 minigame so far to do nothing. Moving on to arch rivals. As the solo player, you need to fire arrows at your opponent's targets and get a score of 100. But since we can't press the button to fire, it's an obvious loss. On the team of 3, we have a much better chance. This is a motion control minigame, so once again we hold our target on an angle because of the way the Joy-Con sits. And luckily for us, Waluigi has pretty trash aim and only manages to get 70 points, giving us the win. On again, off again has these rolling rolls that the solo player has some control over. You can jump up to hit the switch, which will change where and when the grolls drop down to the players below. Luckily, it's completely unnecessary and the grolls will still drop down to the players, giving us a really quick and easy win as the solo player. However, I expected this to be an easy double win, which wasn't the case. On the team of 3, I would unsurprisingly get taken out almost instantly, but I assumed my teammates would just carry me to victory. After many attempts, they weren't even getting close. For some reason, once I got eliminated, my teammates would get eliminated not long after. I then tested to see what would happen if I survived longer in case that had some effect on their performance, but it just seems like the easy AI isn't good enough to survive the full 30 seconds. I was really surprised about this one. Just in case you're wondering, when I put the difficulty up to master, both Koopa and Luigi survived the whole match, so it's definitely possible, but seems much less likely to happen with easy CPUs. Either way, we still got a definitive win as the solo player. Let's hope our teammates do better in Bruiser Bash. The team of 3 need to avoid the solo player in the robotic bruiser, and fortunately Luigi and Koopa do a lot better this time. It also helps that Waluigi is just really bad at controlling the bruiser. As a solo player though, the bruiser doesn't do anything since it requires us to do inputs on the controller. This one's a win, but only for the team of 3. Cage catch is a little bit complicated. First off, we have basically no chance as a solo player since we can't move away from the cage. The team of 3 is where it gets interesting though. There's 3 possible options you have as the team of 3. There's the player who moves the cage left and right, the player who moves the cage up and down, and the player who drops the cage. So we obviously can't win if we're in charge of dropping the cage, but what about the other 2 options? Because of the way the minigame begins, moving left and right is pretty important, since Waluigi will just stay at the opposite end of the cage. He's stupid, but not that stupid. That means our only chance is if we have control of up and down. So that's what I tried over and over and over. There were times where we got close, and sometimes Waluigi would even swim under the cage, so I was determined to get the win. I must have done close to 100 attempts, but for whatever reason we just couldn't seem to get the win. I was about to give up, but then finally this happened. We get the win. You just have to be on the team of 3, controlling the up and down, and play 100 times. Super easy. Income Stream is a motion control minigame and a coin minigame, my two favorites. Since we're doing nothing, I was expecting to go straight off the side as the solo player, but even though the Joy-Con is sitting still, the game seems to steer you away from the edge. Regardless, after many attempts, it seemed clear to me we were never going to get more coins than the team of 3. I will say there was a couple of games where we actually got a few coins, but still not nearly enough to win. So I switched to the team of 3. Once again, even though we weren't moving the Joy-Con, the game stopped us from going off the edge, and we even picked up a few coins for the team. With the help of our teammates, it was enough to secure another win. Blame It on the Crane was a minigame I was pretty confident about. I knew from previous experience that AI wasn't the greatest at controlling the crane in this minigame. Sure enough, we get a win on the first try, and better yet, I was actually the one who survived the whole minigame. Being the solo player was a little bit different since we weren't able to lower the crane. Meaning it's impossible for the solo player, but still a win on the team of 3. That brings us to Snowbrawl. In Snowbrawl, you have to hit all your opponents with snowballs, but to balance it out, the solo player gets help from some Yukiki. The Yukiki are nice to have, but the team of 3 only has to hit you to win the match, so I wasn't sure if it would be possible. I was wrong though, because the team of 3 was pretty garbage, and my little monkeys played like pro athletes. Then I switched to the team of 3, and once again we won fairly easily, giving us a double win for Snowbrawl. Squeaky Shakedown is next. In this minigame, the solo player needs to hit the team of 3 to steal their coins, and the team with the most coins at the end wins. Since I couldn't do anything as a solo player, it was obviously impossible. But I thought maybe with a bit of luck, I could win on the team of 3. Instead though, my teammates basically just surrounded Waluigi and asked him how many coins he wanted. Yeah, for some reason my teammates just didn't really avoid Waluigi at all, and after multiple attempts, the closest I got was 8 coins to Waluigi's 13. I did also try on Master difficulty, and although my teammates were better at running, Waluigi was also better at chasing, and the results were basically the same. Now we're on to the 2 vs 2 minigames, and Rocky Rope Race is up first. Luckily we still have one teammate, but this minigame requires us to press A at the right time to grab the bar, which we obviously can't do. So we just swing back and forth for about 2 minutes while our opponents slowly finish the minigame. This one is impossible. In picking produce, we need to put the correct fruit on the conveyor belt and make sure the fruit doesn't go in the wrong boxes. Luigi must have had a job at the grocery store before he was a plumber, because he easily gets us the win on our first try. Prime Cut requires the teammates to cooperate and cut the steak perfectly in half. Since I can't move though, Luigi has to do the best he can, and to his credit, he actually gets us some pretty impressive scores. World's best teammate. Unfortunately, our luck ends in Dory Pedal Paddle. In this motion control minigame, we need to shake our Joy-Con to pedal the boat. I thought Luigi might be able to paddle on his own, but this wasn't the case, and we just sat there until our opponents finished. This one is impossible to win. Robo Arm Wrestle is yet another motion control minigame. This time you have to shake the Joy-Con to power up your arm, and since I couldn't do anything, it meant Luigi had a 2 vs 1 disadvantage. As we all know though, Luigi is the GOAT and still managed to do better than Waluigi and Koopa combined, securing us another win. In Shadow Play, you and your teammate have to select the correct shapes and combine them to match the shape shown in the picture. Luigi did a great job getting his shapes, but I really let down the team and it was impossible to get a win on this one. For the record though, if the other team also fails every round, after 5 rounds the game ends, resulting in a tie. I did a lot of attempts, and even though the other team was bad, they always seem to win at least 2 rounds, so I'm still calling this one impossible. Matchmakers is another minigame that actually requires me to do something. Both players have to hold up the matching cards. Luigi never lost hope though and stood there the whole time alternating between the correct cards. Sorry Luigi, you did your best. Defuse or Lose has 3 fuses leading to King Bob-omb to blow them up. You need to ground pound the fuses to stop them temporarily. In the very beginning, Luigi ground pounds on top of me to get some payback for the last minigame, but then he locks in, and despite me doing nothing, he still gets the win. In the next minigame, Jump the Gun, you have 2 roles that you can do. One player shoots bullet bills at the targets to create a path, and the other player jumps along the bullet bills to the finish. But as you may have guessed, we couldn't win in either role. Luigi was either waiting for us to jump across the bullet bills or waiting for us to shoot bullet bills. Another impossible minigame. 2-axis taxi was no better. One player controls the up and down, while the other player controls the left and right. As you may have guessed, we didn't get very far. In Tricky Turntable, we definitely have a chance though. Each player has control of a button, and the conveyor in the middle moves one space for each button that gets pressed. The team with the most coins at the end wins. Luigi definitely made some interesting plays, but after a few attempts we did manage to get the win. Coin Corral is another team coin minigame, this time with motion controls. You throw the lasso at the chests and pull them in to get coins. Even though I was doing nothing, it didn't matter because Luigi was playing like a true cowboy and got us yet another win. That just leaves the duel minigames. The duel minigames are basically all impossible since our opponent only has to do the bare minimum to beat us. However, there is one duel minigame where we might have a chance. In Stone Eye Bowling, you line up your shot to knock down as many pins as possible, and fortunately the game automatically releases the ball once the timer ends. This is the final showdown, us against Luigi. He got us so many wins, can he let us have one more? We only knocked down a pathetic 3 pins, but Luigi had one more trick up his sleeve and only knocked down one single pin, giving us our final win. That means out of the 58 minigames we attempted, 20 of them can be beaten by doing nothing, 2 of them might be possible with incredible luck, and the remaining 36 are impossible to win. Thank you to Aristotle for the inspiration on this video. Be sure to go check him out. And if you enjoyed this video, you'll probably really enjoy some of my other Mario Party videos. Thanks for watching and have a great day.